Welcome to Podcast Editing Basics with Audacity. This is part 5. In this video, I'm going to talk about noise reduction and other effects. So to build on the knowledge of previous videos, we saw we can edit across tracks by selecting and dragging either left to right and then down to up. I can select multiple tracks and edit those in the same way. We can cut, copy, paste, delete, and duplicate following the editing actions we already know, using either the toolbar, the keyboard shortcuts, or the edit menu, cut, delete, copy, paste, or duplicate. So in the last video, I talked about how using multi-track editing, we can mute, we can do solo, we can select different tracks, we can edit in different ways. Finally, let's talk a little bit about effects. So Audacity comes with a number of built-in effects that can apply to different audio selections. These can both be selections within a single track or multi-track selections as well. Because for Audacity, those are the same things. They're just audio selections in which an effect is applied. So let's look at an example of that. If I select some audio right here from this first track and I go to Effect, I can select a number of different options. I can amplify, change the speed, change the tempo, compress, distort, all kinds of things. One of the most common things, though, will actually be noise reduction for podcasts. So instead of selecting this audio, I'm going to select this down here, which I've purposely created as some static noise. So I want to say, hey, what I want to happen is I'm going to select a tiny part of it. I'm going to go to Effect, Noise Reduction, and noise reduction works in two steps. The first is to get the noise profile. You tell Audacity what to filter out, and then you rerun it to filter out that selection. So I've selected something, gone to Effect, Noise Reduction, and I'm now going to click on Get Noise Profile. Then I'm going to select the track I want, mute the other ones, because I don't want this effect to be applied to that. I only want it to be applied to a single track, Effect, Noise Reduction, and then OK. And notice it reduced that noise, or what it perceived to be that noise. This can be very common to filter out things like low-level buzzing, low-level static on multiple tracks. But if you only want it applied to one track, select that track, mute the others, or, as we saw in the previous video, I could have just clicked on Solo to select that single track and apply it there. If I wanted to apply it across all tracks, if I unclick Solo, and then did Effect, Noise Reduction. Notice it said, hey, tell me what to reduce. Before, I say, okay, listen for this bit of static, Effect, Noise Reduction, Get Noise Profile, unselect, select everything. So select, holding down Shift, select, holding down Shift, select, or on the keyboard, Control-A to select all tracks. If I go to Effect, Noise Reduction, we can apply it across the entire project. Notice it didn't really affect the other tracks because that noise, that pattern, didn't appear in those other tracks. But again, very useful for reducing out buzzing or static noises or things like that. Or even breathing patterns as well. If you're used to seeing those, you can also find them and tell Audacity to attempt to remove that from the different tracks of a project. A useful tool within the toolbox of editing, especially for podcasts where some recordings might have buzzing or a little bit of noise in them. The other thing I want to talk about is other effects we might want to apply. So let's say I select this first audio up here in this first track. I did noise reduction. There are also other things you might want to try to do within editing for podcasts. Things like Amplify, for example, will say, hey, I will actually make this a little bit bigger. I could click Preview to hear what that might look like, but if I click OK here, you'll notice it amplified that. This can be very useful when you have audio that's a little quieter or audio that didn't quite get recorded. You could do a noise reduction pass first to move out maybe some static, some background noise that's consistent, and then you could amplify that audio a little bit. And then if it was too loud within the individual track, building on our previous knowledge, we could just turn down the gain a little bit on that individual track. So this could be useful to counterbalance noisy situations or recordings where a lot of noise is in the background or people are talking in the background. You could attempt to take that noise out through noise reduction, playing with it, and then seeing and remembering, of course, that if you don't like it, you, of course, can't edit undo or edit redo. And then, building on the audio you do have that you really like, you could amplify it in that way. You could also apply other effects as well, and maybe you actually want to say, hey, what I want to do is normalize this, and click OK, and notice it normalized it, which is to say it moved all of the things within the similar range. So if some things are quiet and some things are loud, it will normalize the waveform to whatever the medium is across that. So I've now normalized this. Another useful tool when either amplifying or normalizing to get all of your sounding and all of your sounds and all of your recordings and tracks within a project all within the same range. So amplifying or normalizing can help with that, along with thinking about noise and doing noise reduction first, either on a single track or across an entire project. So I want to end this with a little more silly thing to say, hey, actually I want effect, and I want, in this case, maybe some fun phaser noises that'll give it a little more phaser effect, and I could apply that, and then close, and that would give it a little bit of extra noise and extra effect. Playing with these effects can actually make some really interesting noises of doing fading in and out, equalization, repairing, giving some phaser noise. You can also, of course, attempt to do a vocal remover or a vocoder, or do some interesting low pass or high pass depending on what you do. It's worth playing with all of these different options just to learn how they affect different things. You could add some wah-wah, truncate some silence. These are all fun tools, fun effects that for podcasting sometimes don't always apply, but can be very useful for either making sounds sound a little bit silly, or just adding that extra thing to just make that pitch a little bit better, or make the audio just a little bit better within these. Thanks for watching.